Sometimes they hand me bios of my guests, and they're so long. I just want to get right into the discussion because I've been having a discussion with him before the show. And of course, Matt Landman and of course, Patrick Roddie with us tonight on Ground Zero. StopSprayingUs.com is Patrick Roddie's website. He was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland with a background in physics, journalism, and photography. His goal is to push the human health impacts of the spraying into mainstream awareness. And we're so glad he's here. Matt Landman is with us too. He's a Washington, D.C. native and university graduate who not only holds an MBA, but was firmly entrenched in the financial world when he decided to take a break and become a filmmaker. And it was while pursuing this goal, he worked on an organic farm in Humboldt County, California, and got really close to nature. This is when Matt noticed that anticipated weather patterns did not appear. Rain fronts vanished in seeming correlation with the persistent white lines in the sky. Matt, like many of us, stumbled upon geoengineering of the weather while working on a farm in the Pacific Northwest. Observation led to research, which led to awakening, which led to more and more things, documentaries, and a climate, actually not a climate, but a solar engineering awareness tour that he's going to be telling us about. We'd like to welcome both gentlemen to the show. Let's see if we get these microphones up. Matt, Patrick, good to see you. Welcome to Ground Zero.
Thank you so much for having me back. We've been talking about the health thing, and what wasn't widely reported that was in the United Kingdom, they just published their mortality statistics for 2016. And you'd expect, okay, what's top three? Cancer, heart attack, stroke. Always has been. Number one, dementia. Number one. Which, of course, includes Alzheimer's, which is caused by aluminum. In Paris and London, they were talking about they had the worst pollution for a decade. They found carbon nanotubes in Parisian lungs. In Turin, half of the children had severe DNA damage from nanoparticulates. And there's a study came out recently showing how nanoparticles interfere with the nuts and bolts of the internal workings of your cells and cause rheumatoid arthritis, which is just one of the very many autoimmune diseases we're all coming down with. This is not a slow kill anymore. They're going full bore. We don't need any more evidence. We need to get this out into the public consciousness and say, oh, hell no. So, yeah, that's where I am right now.
Well, and Matt and I were discussing also earlier, he was talking about something that is called irregular pattern of appearance with these trails. Can you explain to me what that is?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me too, Clyde.
You bet.
It's been a year. I was here a year ago, and so much has changed since then, especially in the whole chemtrail activism community. So yeah, I think that the irregular pattern of appearance is the most tangible thing that people, especially new to it, can sink their teeth into. And what I mean by that is that some days don't have chemtrails, right? Some days are clear. And really, the more clear days you get in a row, the more likelihood it is that you're going to get a grid pattern coming up. But this irregular pattern of appearance where you not only have no lines in the sky, but you also don't have the air traffic, okay? So a lot of people, listeners, feel free to look up at your sky, look at that air traffic, see those days where there's nothing going on. And this irregularity in the appearance it's the clue, it's the first clue for the newbies.
Yeah, and we've had sometimes very blue sky, and then we start seeing the grids take place. And then it's interesting how the grids are formed here in the Northwest. They're formed off the Pacific. They go farther out. If they're formed off the Pacific, we get some very harsh weather. If they're formed here, the East gets very harsh weather. And so, with that in mind, you start seeing that pattern, and you're beginning to, like, I used to tell friends of mine, say, look, they're doing the trails here. You can imagine what it's going to be like on the east. And what do we hear about? We hear about some horrible storm, or we see a reverse in the jet, in the electrojet. You hear about a storm that instead of going from east to west, goes west to east. And so we're seeing that a lot of what is happening here, not only are we seeing the trails, but we're seeing a lot of manipulation with electronics in the ionosphere. They're cooking the ionosphere, and it's causing the electrojet to fluctuate. And this is why we're seeing all kinds of strange weather patterns. It's not because of the fact that it's climate whatever. I mean, climate changes, we know that. But we've seen a lot of tampering with the natural order of how the weather systems move. We've seen how the grids change the weather systems. You heard that report from 1980. John Chancellor saying that in the future they may just use the planes to make weather do whatever it wants. what, like create hurricanes, tornadoes, weather systems that they can't control, force multiply them somehow, put a trail in the sky and then use something to cook the cloud? I mean, we're seeing this now. It's not like, you don't have to be crazy to see that this is going on. Right?
Certainly not.
Patrick Robbie's with us tonight on Ground Zero. Also, Matt Landman. We're talking about the chemtrails. We're talking about the facts. Because a lot of people are saying, hey, get off this because it's just a regular contrail. Yeah, we know the difference. We paid attention in science class. We know that this is what it is because we know of the conditions that can make a contrail. But by damn, if we're not looking now and we're realizing that all the things that they were saying in the original studies, all the open air tests, all the diseases and the sickness behaviors, they're returning because they're increasing. As Patrick says, they're increasing the sprays. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back. I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. The numbers to call tonight, 888-673-3700. Matt Landman with us tonight. Patrick Robbie with us tonight. Talking about chemtrails. Nothing like you've heard anywhere else. Breaking open the story again, because, of course, there are many scientists, the climate change believers who say that there are no such things as chemtrails. And the reason why they don't want anyone to believe that chemtrails exist is because it would just basically thwart their plans of convincing us of anthropogenic global warming or global cooling or whatever. But the thing that's most important, and Patrick, we were talking about this earlier, and that was the health. You brought up the dementia thing. You said that one of the biggest causes was that in the United Kingdom.
No, the
dementia?
leading cause of death, number one, above cancer, heart attack, and stroke.
Was dementia.
Dementia, yeah.
I wanted to let you know that there was a study that was released back in the summer of 2016, the Environmental Protection Agency. They declared that emissions from jet engines endanger the health of human beings and the environment. They pointed out they were investigating the possibility that lingering contrails, this is what they called them, lingering contrails contribute to dangerous heat waves, more powerful storms, lengthening of fire seasons, and other dangerous consequences. Meanwhile, they're also saying this. They were couching an argument that I was reading today in the political discussion about Donald Trump's environmental his regulations and all the things he's going to change. Well, there's a new study about air pollution that's revealing that, once again, the particulate, the aluminum and barium that we talk about in the trails, is creating dementia. Okay? For older women, breathing air that is heavily polluted by metals and other sources of fine particulates nearly doubles the likelihood of developing dementia, and the cognitive effects of air pollution are dramatically more pronounced in women who carry a genetic variant known as APOE, that's APOE-E4, which puts them at higher risk for developing Alzheimer's disease.
Well, it's not surprising at all. The EPA thing, the EPA actually testified there in 2015. They had this, they wanted to regulate aircraft emissions, which ties in with technocracy because they have to move us over to an energy economy to screw everybody over. But the increase in the spraying is so extreme. There is a part of London, they exceeded their yearly pollution limit in 4 days. And where is there hundreds of times more cars there? No. It's obviously, what's changed? The skies are full of crap. All of the, I posted a while ago on my Facebook because I was feeling really lousy. Who else is feeling crappy? People were messaging me and saying the vast majority of the people that they knew were sick, and they're all these brand new diseases that we never heard of. When I was a kid, I hardly knew anyone who even had asthma. Now everyone's got this stuff. I used to be a newspaper reporter in the 80s, back in actually early 90s in England, and whenever a kid got cancer, it was freaking front page news. Now, childhood cancer is off the charts. There are so many things going on, and it's because these nanoparticles are disrupting the workings of our cells our bodies attack ourselves, and it goes nuts. But just concentrating on what's being sprayed is only half the story. The electromagnetic aspect of this is devastating. The Russians were using the woodpecker program back in the 80s. They could change
right here.
And because it's very, very long. If you have a low wavelength, it travels a very long distance. And it's such simple technology. Our body's resonant frequency is 5 hertz. All you have to do is just point that at someone, and if you pick someone up and shake them at 5 times a second, they'll fall apart. There's so much research on the cognitive, physiological, and other effects of electromagnetic radiation on our bodies and our minds. And, put a burrito in the microwave, it does something, and okay, that might seem a little trite, but that's a very large part of it. You'll often find you just be going about along with your day, and then suddenly, like, bam, you're extremely tired, you just have to sleep. And you'll find a lot of people at the same time will have those things. You'll have people getting similar, like, muscle spasms in different parts of the body all over the place. I mean, what I want to do, like I said before, I need to firmly establish the connection between the spraying. It's full spectrum warfare. I mean, the electromagnetic, the spraying, all these sort of things. And what I need people to do is go to the county coroner's office and get the granular raw mortality data as far back as it goes and send it to me. The CDC, I tweeted them today. They still, it's February and they haven't even published the mortality statistics for 2016. Why are they hiding it? Because, yes, England got it really bad and their, Alzheimer's and dementia thing went way up. I got to say, people got really, really sick last year, and I think I want to see the raw data and have independent people go through it and figure out how sick people are getting from this.
This may sound a little off, and it's based on nothing scientific, but when you look around last year and you see all of the rock stars and celebrities that died at young ages,
oh yeah,
and you say to yourself, well, if that's happening to them, what's happening to other people? I had my father died last year, and he was 74, but still, he died of a respiratory illness that he wasn't expecting to get. He died of pulmonary edema. Now, he developed that pulmonary edema when he was in the hospital.
Right.
And so respiratory failure, and Mary Tyler Moore, I think, died of respiratory failure.
Well, in Scotland last year, between 2014 and 2015, the death rate from respiratory failure went up like 14% in 1 year. Like, that's statistically significant. Why aren't they asking, why, is this massive jump? Italy's death rate overall went up 11%. This is carnage. Everyone's favorite bête noire, Hitler killed 6 million. How many millions are these guys killing?
Well, and that's another thing, is that when you say, the government or some private contractor or somebody is doing this.
Yeah.
We don't always throw it at the government and say the government's responsible. It's not always the government.
Well, because they're spraying Russia.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you're looking at the spraying, it could be private contractors doing it,
sure.
Weather modification, could be a number of things that they're doing. Geoengineering, of course, Matt, he was the one that introduced me to the idea of geoengineering being used and doing the studies of geoengineering. That's what we talked about the last time you were on the program. And I was saying, after our talk, that it was just, I thought it was just a travesty that while there's proof of geoengineering, even Ellen asked Al Gore about it. He's, that's just really silly. But he knows that it's going on. They all know what's going on, and they know that if they talk about it, they know if they bring it up, and they say, hey, somebody is responsible for trying to alter the system, the electrojet, they're trying to alter the electrojet and alter the environment so people become toxic and have the sickness behavior that eventually leads to depression, that eventually leads to suicide. They all say, no, that's not happening. Have you found that, Matt, as a frustration trying to, you've got a new film coming out, or you're working on a film called Frankenskies. What are some of your frustrations?
Oh, wow. My frustrations. Well, I do a lot of grassroots activism, so I get to meet a lot of different people. And people want to be able to sink their teeth into it all. They want to know the who, the what, the why, the where, the when, before they can base an opinion on any of it. And earlier we're talking about the electromagnetic frequencies. What they do is they oscillate these frequencies. So this oscillation pattern, you can't develop a brainwave pattern that is in one frequency mode because of the oscillations. You can't develop an opinion. You can't take a stance on something. So one frustration that I have is people say, yeah, I've heard a lot of things about that. They say it to everything. You bring up any sort of activism type topic, such as 9/11, especially the youth, and they've been bombarded with so much information, and they can't maintain a brainwave pattern to make a solid response, that they just say, I've heard a lot of things, and they move on. Another thing I'd like to mention before we lose track of the aluminum in the environment is the bees are actually getting the dementia as well.
Well, you heard that now the bees are an endangered species.
Exactly.
I was reading about that the other day, that they now have made them an endangered species, and that's frightening. Because I mean, before we had what would they call that, hive... I can't remember.
Colony collapse disorder.
Yeah, colony collapse disorder. They said the colony collapse disorder could be because of, Roundup, Monsanto, you name off all these things. But think about this. The bees are dying of the same type of problems that we're having. And that is dehydration, not getting enough water, not having enough water in our bodies, having diseases that are creating this sick behavior that we're having. And the bees get it too. And they're dying off because they don't have energy drinks to drink. They don't have, and even those energy drinks are going to kill you quick too, because you're just stuffing them down to keep yourself alive and keeping yourself awake. Even people who have good night's sleep are not feeling well. They wake up tired, they wake up dragging. And so what else could it be but something environmental, something toxic that we're being exposed to? And everybody, when they look up, they wonder. People get apprehensive about the trails. They look up and they're like going, oh, there's something bad about that. Something bad about that really oily and gross sunlight I'm seeing where the clouds are going, well, what is that? Well, dropping crap out of planes. And, well, they can't do that at a commercial airliner. Well, I know. But that's not what it is. There's something more to that. Well, you're just going to say it's the government. Not necessarily. It could be some private organization, some private firm. It could be some military private situation. We don't know who's behind it, really.
It's got to be above government, though, because it's global.
Right. They're doing it all over the world.
Yeah. China, Russia, everywhere.
And then that's the thing. If we don't know who, then we don't know all of the answers for them, and then they can't make a solid opinion. One of my biggest frustrations is the line, they wouldn't do that to us.
Because they have family.
Well,
I've heard that too. Why would they do that to us? Because they have families too. And I tell them, well, I have a genetic disorder that makes me prone to cancer. And why? Because they were testing nuclear weapons in the West Deserts of Nevada, St. George, Cedar City area in Utah. My family was subjected to that radiation, which caused some DNA problems, and it got passed down to me.
And your son.
Yeah, and my son. And they were doing that because they wanted to protect us and figure out they wanted to figure out what was going on with nuclear exposures. And they did it all for the war effort. And people say, why would they do that? Why would they do that? Because they have families too. They did that because they felt that was more important than the lives of people and their posterity and their progeny.
Well, you know how they were protecting the Standing Rock protesters? They were getting low-flying helicopters and small, crop duster planes, maybe 50, 100 a day over their encampment. And they tested positive for uranium-235, rat poison, ammonia, banned pesticides. UN observers were there, and they were exposed to it. What the hell's going on?
Oh, it's crazy.
So, yeah, nasty.
Patrick Robbie with us today on Ground Zero, Matt Landman with us, talking about this situation with the trails. It's becoming more and more apparent that this is happening, and we need to take notice of what is happening because, you can't let, science has paid off, tell you that it's not real when people are feeling it, they're seeing it, and they're experiencing something that they can't put their finger on. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. More Ground Zero. Don't go away. Patrick Roddie is with us today on Ground Zero. Matt Landman. We're talking about the trails. We're talking about the experiments that are going on in the skies above us. And I was just curious, Patrick, we were talking about the WHO I mean, government maybe. Who's
Well,
responsible?
Okay, I mean, really, it's a mob. I mean, a mob is a group of people who have, they're lacking empathy and they prey on others. With the mafia, pay some money, burn your shop down. Local government, pay your property taxes, or we'll take your house. Works at national government, but above we have this predator class. We've always had them. We always will, and they're sociopaths. Basically, they lack empathy because this is part of, here's where I sound like a hippie, part of a much larger spiritual battle. It is good against evil. And evil is basically a lack of good, just as heat is cold is a lack of heat. And of course, if they don't care, and they're all about themselves. We share, we love, we do all that stuff. And I don't think it matters to name names. It's the model we go after. Because if you look at the movie The Godfather, taking out one of the families would not get rid of the mafia. It's the model you go after. And to fight darkness, you create light. And truth is light. Matt's movie is truth. It's shining light. And you do not engage them with their hate, fear, and violence. That's what they use. If they bring hate, fear, and violence to you, you refuse, turn it around, hand it back to them, and then they're left holding it. It's a problem for them. It sounds really simplistic, but it really is that simple. You have to be as awesome as you can be. You love as much as you can. And if anyone comes to you offering hate, fear, violence, or anything from the other side, say, no thanks. You just hang on to that, and then they're screwed. And in terms of the spraying, you do need to protect yourself. There's one problem about being good is altruism can go too far. You need to protect yourself. Right. Before you can protect others, you need to get healthy. You need to protect yourself physically, mentally, spiritually. And Matt will be talking in his next movie about the different ways you can get this crap out of your body. It's complex.
I may want to talk about that coming up in the next hour a little bit, and we'll get the phone calls. Patrick Roddie with us tonight on Ground Zero, and Matt Landman talking about the trails again. But we're talking about it in a way, hopefully, to give you solutions and also to talk more about who's responsible, what's going on, and how all of the things that we were told these trails are doing are now being admitted to by certain groups and organizations. They're saying, we need to reinvestigate this. We need to look into the possibility. While all the other scientists are saying it's all bunk and nonsense, there are other groups that are saying, hey, you better monitor what the air is like because something is causing this toxicity. 888-673-3700. We'll be back. I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. The numbers to call tonight, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I wanted to share, in this first moment, a very classic phone call that was made by one of my listeners, actually, because she called the show after we played this call. Woman calls a scientist at NASA to ask about trails left behind by rockets and how they've laid trails. And the NASA scientist actually admits that they do lay lithium trails sometimes. Listen to this phone call.
When I called NASA yesterday and I spoke with someone in your Washington, D.C. office, I was told that he's scared to death. He's going to denounce his citizenship and go back to the Philippines.
Okay.
That's what I was told by NASA yesterday when I called.
Okay.
Directly from your office.
That conversation with their knowledge?
I'm sorry?
Did you record that conversation with their knowledge?
Are you recording my conversation with that knowledge, sir?
No.
I'm sorry?
No, I'm not recording any conversation.
You're not recording any conversation with my knowledge, and NASA isn't either, and you can't get through it anyway. If you want to leave a message, it rings and rings and then hangs up on you. Same with Wallop Island. So I would love to leave a message there. Could you give me a direct answer? Because it says you're the scientist here on the NASA website.
Yeah, I'm involved in the project, but...
You are a scientist, so then, and you know that this is experimental, you've never done it before?
No, it's been done in the 1970s. It's been done recently in the 1990s and 2000s.
Oh, that's not what it said on this article here.
It hasn't been done since 1970, the lithium release in the daytime.
Why would it be done now then, sir? That's scary.
Detailed information. If you could please send your comments by email.
Okay, will you respond to my email if I send them?
Happy to answer them, yes.
You will. Okay, what was your email, sir?
Douglas.e.roland, Douglas.
I'm sorry?
E.
Uh-huh.
Roland, Rowland.
At,
NASA.gov.
I'm sorry?
NASA.gov. NASA.gov.
Okay. Well, I will be expecting an email back from you then, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's very important. We communicate what we're doing to the public. We're very interested in making sure everyone knows what we're doing. We're not, we're a civilian space agency dedicated to science and research and so on. So we're very, very keen to make sure that the taxpayers know what we're doing and everything. So. Well,
you know, when the article came out in the major newspapers, including the Huffington Post, there was no mention of lithium. Not one. Not one mention of lithium until I heard the recording of the actual, I listened to it. I listened to the rockets go off. I had no idea there was going to be a lithium dispersed until I heard payload lithium dispersed.
Right, there was lithium dispersed, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. I think you might be under some misconceptions about what we're doing, but I'm happy to tell you any details that you need.
Well, I know that it says in your article that you're doing it for communications.
Okay, I'm happy to talk to you more about it. There are many reasons we're doing it.
Okay.
We don't understand how the wind in the upper atmosphere moves.
Mm-hmm.
In these chemtrails, there's different kinds of chemtrails, as you probably know. Different trails at night we use and different trails during the day. The wind blows them around. They glow either on their own or from scattered sunlight. We take pictures and we can see how the wind trail moves around and use that to infer what the wind is. Just like if you were taking a picture of an airplane contrail, you can use that to see how the wind was blowing up at those altitudes. This is much higher altitude, so we use these chemical trails.
And what is the purpose of knowing what the wind's going to do in the ionosphere?
The purpose is the ionosphere is really to understand our planet. It's very fundamental science. We're trying to understand every day. We know there's electric currents that flow over the head. They're just naturally there. They've been there for ever since the Earth had an atmosphere and a magnetic field. And the wind is driven by the sun. The sun heats the atmosphere. The wind blows. And every day that wind drives an electric current. And we're trying to understand what causes that. Essentially, how does it work in detail? And also importantly, when the sun becomes active with lots of sunspots and lots of magnetic activity, that changes the wind pattern and changes electric currents. So we want to understand both what it is on a regular day when there's no solar activity, and then what it is when there's a lot of solar activity.
Is there some other kind of a way that you can use it without dispersing the lithium?
Researching other ways. The lithium is actually harmless to the environment, and we could show you more about that, but it is tricky to use because it's very faint. You can't see it with your naked eye. You have to, have special cameras to see it and so on. So we don't like to use it for that reason. It's hard. In other words, it's hard measurement to make. We're researching other ways to put sensors directly on the rocket to measure the wind, and those are ongoing. We're trying to develop those now. In fact, one of the purposes of this mission was to do that.
I'm thinking that's the first time you ever heard a scientist from NASA say chemtrail, and that's why I play that all the time. Patrick Roddie with us tonight. Matt Landman's with us to talk about this thing. I wanted to comment too. The EPA acknowledges now that dementia could be caused by the particulate in the metals left behind in these trails. The UN, another acknowledgement from the UN when we had Rosalind Peterson, who was the president of the Agriculture Defense Coalition. She reported on the effectiveness of aerosol programs around the world, and the fact that issue was even discussed at the UN was unprecedented. Anyone want to comment on what Rosalind Peterson had to say? Matt?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And that clip is, of course, in the film Frankenskies that I'm releasing February 27th. I actually just put together a crowdfund for it on GoFundMe.com. So on GoFundMe, there is a Frankenskies. And yeah, Rosalind Peterson, she gets up there in front of the UN and basically tells them that plants need sunlight for photosynthesis. I mean, it's pretty obvious. But then the proponents for geoengineering, such as David Keith, he's a Harvard solar geoengineer, he claims that by shrouding the sky with chemicals and blocking our sun, it will be a boon for agriculture because the heat stress will be relieved from the plants. What do you all think about that, listeners? Do you think the plants need sunlight to thrive?
Well, I mean, it goes back to that report in 1980 about whether or not these trails do affect the weather, whether or not they affect the electrojet, whether or not it's creating a reason for us to feel sick. And like you said, Patrick, I mean, it's good versus evil. Like,
absolutely, and unfortunately, all the three-letter agencies, and amongst those, I will include NASA and NOAA. Their three-letter agencies are all complicit in this war on life. I mean, it's not war on people. Everything's getting sick. I mean, microorganisms, fungi, trees, birds, everyone, your freaking dog is getting sick from this, and it's got to stop. But the thing is, though, we use simply because things belong to the other side, we can use them for good. I'm recording this on an iPhone, which is basically a slave tracking device. It's a very fun slave tracking device. But back to the three-letter agency, NASA. They have a NASA worldview, which I recommend everyone have a look at. The website is worldview.earthdata.nasa.gov, and you can go there. You can see the spraying program, and it's massive. I haven't looked today, but pretty much usually the entire northern hemisphere is shrouded with this crud. So that's one thing you can do. Of course, talk to people, get educated. I want people to try and, spend a few bucks, get your rainwater analysis. You can get your hair analyzed. But we have to, you're not going to get an official admission of a covert program from any agency. That's not going to happen.
I always get people say, well, I know a pilot, and he says it's not happening, or I know a mechanic. And I tell them it's not the commercial pilots nor the commercial mechanics that know about this. What this is private funding. This is being privately done without the oversight of Congress or anybody else.
Of course, but it is coming from commercial jets too. I mean, what happened to all our luggage allowances? There is extra room has been freed up on these planes, and I have footage of these sprayers, and they show up on flight radar. Korean Airlines, Virgin Atlantic, and there's a.
So we're talking about foreign airlines, commercial jets.
Oh no, domestic and foreign. I don't know any airline that does not spray. I have yet to find an airline that doesn't.
But where pilots have been saying that they're spraying.
But the pilots aren't involved. It's essentially, I mean, they aren't told, oh, by the way, turn this switch when you get to a certain point. It's all done centrally. So I mean, and it could be that none of the, there is compartmentalization. Yeah, I mean, yes, they freaking know it's going on, but they don't actually do the operations of it. I mean, some of the ground crews, sure. But there's the commercial fleet and there's the drone fleet. Because on really heavy spray days, when the sky is totally gridded out, there isn't that much commercial traffic. And frankly, there's no point having pilots. I mean, the only reason we have pilots in commercial airlines is because we as passengers are not ready to get onto robot planes just yet, because they've had drones since freaking World War II.
They're experimenting with the idea of pilotless.
Well, they're trying. They once people get used to it, they'll start with driverless cars, and when at some point. But the drone fleet. The Black Ops fleet, whatever you want to call it. I mean, a lot of that stuff can be all the filling and maintenance and stuff can be automated, because right now, if you look at a typical factory, you'll have a couple of dudes and like acres of robots. So we've almost gotten to the point of von Neumann machines where robots can build them, replicate themselves. And I think the program, the global program, is. I don't know who's doing it, but there is some central organization to it. And whether, different power blocks are playing off each other to steal rain or whatever, I don't know. But it is a war against all life. So the people who are doing it are very freaking dark. And if you listen to your gut and do the right thing, a year ago, I didn't believe this stuff, but now I really know the spiritual stuff is real. We're fighting darkness, and you got to do it with light. And
the truth will set you free.
Yeah,
It'll piss you off first.
It'll piss you off first, and you got to get through. And you got to get through that awakening process, because that is traumatic. Change is traumatic, and that's the other thing, because it's going to be tough to get the other side to not do what they do, because they're happy being in their really dark place, and for them to change out of that, they got to go through all the grieving, the entire grieving process. So cut them some slack.
So back to the commercial jets. It looks like we're going to a break, but when we come back, I would love to talk about the governance. There's a complete call for governance. There's so many programs at play now. United Arab Emirates has the largest public geoengineering program globally. Now there's a call for governing the programs.
Geoengineering programs?
Yes.
Patrick Roddie with us and Matt Landman with us tonight on Ground Zero. Geoengineering, the geoengineering trails, the chemtrails, how it's affecting us, EPA acknowledging it, UN acknowledging it now, and that this is just the beginning. You're not hearing it in the mainstream. Why? Because we're all caught up in our politics. But of course, they couch things now into some of Donald Trump's environmental programs, and it kind of sneaks in under the radar because you really have to pay attention and read between the lines. This is an environmental problem. It's toxicity, and it's creating dementia and other maladies, and also sickness behavior is another thing that's happening right now. It's a broad term, but people are experiencing sickness behavior, and it could lead to depression. It could lead to other problems, even death. 888-673-3700. We'll be back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away. Patrick Roddie is with us tonight on Ground Zero. So Matt Landman, we're talking about the chemtrails. We're talking about the who, the why, the how, all of it. We're trying to give you the broken down version. There's so much to cover now. And you were saying, Matt, that there's so many things happening, and that you're petitioning things. There's something called the Pinatubo effect. What are you talking about? Well, you were talking about that earlier.
Oh yeah, I would love to talk about that. It's a little layered, so just give me a couple minutes to explain it all. So Mount Pinatubo erupted in 1991. In the Philippines. It shrouded the Earth's atmosphere with sulfuric dust, and it lowered the temperature on Earth minus half degrees Celsius. So we lost some temperature on Earth. They're claiming that they can shroud the planet with these aerosols, these metallic aerosols, to block out the sun, to create a Mount Pinatubo effect. That's where they get that name. So so we're talking about governance now of the geoengineering, of all of the geoengineering on Earth, because there's so many different players doing it all at once. So what happened was, me and Patrick found out that there was a meeting in Chicago. It's coming up May 18th this year in Chicago. On May 18th, which is the anniversary of Mount St. Helens erupting. So they're meeting on the anniversary of a volcanic eruption to stage a man-made volcanic eruption via aerosols out of the airplanes. So they want to block out the sun, right? And what they're doing is they're establishing a geoengineering governance regime. It's a self-proclaimed regime. They asked for papers to identify things like, should we even involve the UN? Should we take into consideration human health impacts? What role will public perception and opinion play while we establish this solar geoengineering governance regime, self-titled regime? So Patrick and I, we independently submitted papers. I hired a PhD. My paper delved into the human rights aspect, that we have the right to environmental decision-making participation. Both of our papers were, of course, rejected. And in response, we're planning a 23-city North American tour that culminates in Chicago on that day. On May 17th, out front of the building that they're holding this meeting in, we're having a candlelight vigil for planet Earth. Okay, it is their plan to do full-scale deployment. They claim that all of the research that we've been seeing, these grid patterns, are research. They're admitting to it. That the chemtrails, the geoengineering, the solar radiation management, okay, and now you can even look up the Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative, SRMGI. Okay, it's an initiative to govern their solar radiation management, which is chemtrails, which is geoengineering.
And Greenpeace is a partner.
And Greenpeace is a partner of the Solar Radiation Management Governance Initiative. So all these people have been bought, these green organizations. Thank you, Patrick. So these people are meeting, 24 scientists behind closed doors, to develop the plan for the regime to take hold to go full-scale deployment. So what they want to do is completely block out the sun. No more blue skies on planet Earth once they go full-scale deployment, once they enact their Mount Pinatubo effect. They want to do it at the end of this year. So if I can segue real quick, I try to convey all this, right, to people. I meet people on the streets. I meet people every single day. I'm passing out flyers, telling them, hey, I've got this movie. Hey, the planes are spraying things in the sky. And each person, I have to take a different approach. Okay, think about all the different people out there, all these different demographics. The kids, they love it. Kids are totally awake. Okay, but you've got people from all these different walks of life. Okay, and I just want to share one story that I had. I was talking to a cashier, this woman. Okay, and what I do is I look these people right in the eyes, and I determine their level of awareness. Some people I look in the eyes and I say, hey, you know about chemtrails, right? And they go, yeah, I've been researching it forever. Oh my gosh. And I go, hey, I'm making a movie about it. Can I share with you, follow me on Facebook, yada, yada. I've got a new website, actualactivists.com, plural, actualactivists.com. And it embraces all these different things. So this story, I'm at the cash register and I say to the woman, yeah, I'm working on this film. Have you ever seen the lines in the sky? And she goes, yeah, from the planes. And I say, sometimes. And she stares at me for 5 seconds. She looks outside. It's blue sky out. I can see these wheels spinning in her head, spinning, spinning, spinning. She looks outside again. She goes through her memory bank in her head and she yells at me, sometimes? And I go, yeah, sometimes. And she says, how come the planes aren't flying today? Well, how come the planes weren't flying yesterday? How come the planes come only sometimes and leave these lines in the sky, but then they go away for a week? And I said, yes, exactly. Pretty cool, huh?
Amazing. We've got the awareness going right here. Patrick Roddie, Matt Landman. We'll be back with more. Keep it here. Don't go away. I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. The numbers to call tonight, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Patrick Roddie with us tonight and Matt Landman. Dishing the dirt on the chemtrail situation and the who, what, why, where, and all the names and groups involved. We're going to go to some calls now. We go now to Rick in Ohio. Hi, Rick. You're on Ground Zero. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wanting to comment about the chemtrail situation. I'd been listening to Art Bell for years and heard him talking about that stuff. And I was at a festival here back probably around 2000, 99, somewhere around there. And there was a bunch of spider web looking stuff floating down from the sky. I mean, that stuff was everywhere. And, I got it on my clothes. It was just so much around. And it would disappear. I thought it was spider webs, but you could put it on your clothes and look at it, and it would just dissolve and just disappear. I was wondering if you knew anything about that.
This is Patrick here. Yeah, those are electrospun nanofibers. You can use, you can encapsulate all kinds of stuff like white blood cells, all kinds of things. And if you like, you can go online and buy a machine that'll make them for you. It costs you about 65 grand. And it's not from spiders. These things are highly toxic. As I mentioned before, with the Italian children with the severe DNA damage from these nanoparticles, it's extremely dangerous technology. The guys who make these things, it's very, very, very dangerous. They have full protection, except they just spray this crap on everyone. So anytime anyone sees any of this stuff, by all means collect it, but do not let it touch your skin. It is not good. So again, the term is electrospun nanofibers. So yeah, not good.
So to help you out, Rick?
Well, what was really bad about that is that it was like a festival and everybody was grilling food out.
I know, yeah.
Open. So if that stuff getting on the food and you're eating it,
or you're breathing it.
The public don't realize they're doing this stuff, and they better wake up.
Actually, a lot of them do. I mean, the amount of awareness is skyrocketing. The more they spray, the more people realize it. I mean, we think, oh, we're just some fringe thing. No, it's becoming common knowledge. A few years ago, I'd be lucky to find 1 in 10. Now, it's like most people I speak to know about this. So it's
and it's thanks to shows like this here is why people.
Oh yeah. And you talking to people. It's just like we don't have to wait for like the EPA to say, oh yeah, we're doing it. It's you talking to someone on the bus or at a barbecue in the supermarket. That's how we win this. And you're doing it because you do it because you give a crap. And because you're a normal human being, we're working against people who don't give a crap. They're our opposite. It's very hard for a normal human being to understand what it's like to have no empathy. But just imagine the opposite, and that's what they are. So you just have to accept it. You wouldn't really understand it truly, but you have to just know it's there. But yeah, keep spreading the word.
Thank you, Rick, for your call. Let's go to Chris in Alabama. Hi, Chris. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, how are you guys?
Doing great.
Hey, listen, I want to thank both of you for the work you're doing, journalistic, research, everything. You guys are bringing a lot of this stuff to our attention, just as was commented.
Thank you, brother.
I got two basic questions. One, is it possible, this is the non-conspiratorial, this is all bunk, there's no conspiracy. What if it's just because of the increased CO2 in our atmosphere, which we've never experienced in our industrial age? And two, what if it is an after effect of fuel additives, which all fuel that we use has additives in it? Could it just be new fuel additives, whether conspiratorial or not, unintentional effects of something they just put in jet fuel? I've observed with video. I got really deep into this. I'm a cloud freak. I'm a sky freak. This is a new phenomenon. I'm not denying it. I try not to be a conspiracy nut, but I can't help myself. There's something going on, definitely. But I watch the contrails with magnification. They're coming out of the engines. I track Atlanta. I live in Alabama, so I track Atlanta to Birmingham flights. I know which flights are flying over at what times of the day. I take a day every now and then and sit down and track this. I know which flights are going overhead. They're just random commercial flights. Some have contrails, some do not. Some days they have them, some days they don't. It almost seems random, but there's definitely a pattern to it. So that's where I get into my atmospheric question. Is it just an atmospheric phenomenon, and then we could dismiss all of this? Or are they that clever? Because no commercial airline can carry the tanker or the sprayer tanks like you see in the videos and in the photos and stuff. I've flown a lot. Those planes do not have that much equipment installed on them.
Well, let's get
how could they possibly be doing this?
Let's get Patrick to answer that question.
Well, first of all, you said, "Oh, is it CO2?" CO2 is a clear gas; you don't see it. So that's number one. I forget the next one. Oh yeah, is it just something? It's a fuel additive. Well, if it's a fuel additive, how come I have footage of planes spraying one trail with two engines and 8 trails with 2 engines? So, or you see ones like you'll have a trail go which has stretched the entire wing, the full wing sprayers, and the trails being turned on and off. And, I have footage, there was like an audio recording out of Portland. There was this plane taking off and the air traffic controller saying, "Hey, you've got a chemtrail off your left wing." Yeah, so if it's not a fuel additive because it can be turned on and off. Also, like, where's all this room to put all the equipment and the tanks and stuff? First of all, it doesn't take a whole lot of material, because if you look at in Operation Popeye, when they round out the Ho Chi Minh Trail, they only used like 4 planes, and and the amount of material they used was in the kilograms, not the tons. Since 9/11. They've really heavily restricted the baggage allowances on all aircraft. So I don't understand that the planes are like flying around with all this empty space. They've created more space, and there's plenty of patents where the substance actually gets injected into in through the exhaust. I mean, there's a US Navy patent called the powder contrail generator. There's so much freaking evidence. It's insane. Go to stopsprayingus.com for a start. But and also another really handy thing is when you see if you see a big, huge trail. There's a website called the Wyoming Soundings, and what that is, that's a network of weather balloons that go up, and it measures the relative humidity. And if really you need 100% humidity and a condensation nucleus, when you burn jet fuel, you get gaseous water and gaseous carbon dioxide. Neither of those are condensation nucleus. Nothing can stick to it. You cannot get a contrail, and it has to be 100%. I've been like I'm living in Southern Oregon, and you'll see the sky's like full of crap, and the relative humidity is down at 7%. Like if you get a spray bottle, spray your desk, it will evaporate because it's not 100% humidity. What the hell is this apart from the obvious? They're spraying the crap out of us. So
If I can
anyway,
interject really
Go
quick,
ahead.
I think you answered it yourself, caller. You said that there was an irregular pattern.
yeah,
Right?
bingo.
But then you said it's almost predictable.
Yeah.
So to me, it sounds like you're describing a conspiracy.
Well, it sounds like there's a plan. And
Yeah,
of course,
there's a plan. There's an agenda.
definitely some intelligence to it, for sure.
It's strategic.
Yeah, pretty strategic. Let's go to Justin in Virginia. Hi, Justin. You're on Ground Zero.
We're in Virginia.
Hi there, Clyde. It is a huge honor to talk to you.
Thank you.
Number one, I want to say you're a dude. You're on like 300 stations and you bust it. Come on, let's go.
Thank you, man.
You're like number one.
Thank you.
You're the best. So about like 2.5 years ago, like I'm like you, I can bus it or walk to work. I work as a mechanic, and so I'm looking to my right, which would have been eastbound at the time I'm going to work, and yes, you just get lines and lines and lines and lines across the sky, and then maybe an hour later, it just poured like there was no tomorrow, and there was a storm created. So if this goes into anything that we're talking about tonight, yes, I certainly watched like lots of planes go across the sky early in the morning because I have that time to look up, because generally I just bike it or walk because I work so close to or live so close to where I work. So yes, I have that chance to look up, and it's just you get that grid pattern, and then it's just haze. And what is it for?
Yeah, well, I mean,
it generally seems to be when it's going to be, when the predicted weather is to be sunny.
Oh yeah, I mean, you heard that report from 1980 saying that the weather will change with these trails, and they may be used intentionally to change the weather. And the truth is, they probably already are. And we do have, in fact, you were talking earlier, Matt, with me about back, I don't know what year it was or what time it was. They were actually driving by in cars doing trails. And, I was reading something today about aqua trails. You ever heard of aqua trails?
Yes, I have.
It's where the ships actually lay trails in the water, and people have seen aqua trails. And I'm like going, wow, I've never heard of aqua trails. I found out about aqua trails today. It's the first time I ever was exposed to aqua trails.
Yeah, they're huge.
So yeah, they lay down these fog trails in water. Ships just all of a sudden just lay down these trails, and no one knows what the aqua trails are being laid down there for, but they're being laid down.
Actually, I think I mean a lot of the people concentrate on the ships, but when you look at the continental size trails, you'll see ones that will go, like there was one a few weeks ago. It started in Libya and went all the way to Pakistan. You'll have a trail it'll come in off Baja California, fill the entire freaking Gulf and stretch out into the Atlantic. Those are, I think most of those are ground-based. It can be ship-based or ground-based, because to carry that much material up into the sky is difficult. And that's the other thing, because it's not just, when you see the grids. These are really freaking giant things. And go to, people out there, bookmark this. Go there and check it out. Worldview.earthdata.nasa.gov. You can see it's a crime scene in progress. It's scary.
Yeah, people dig in NASA. They talk about the aerosolized programs all the time, and they investigate some of the private companies that are doing this. There are private groups that are doing this. It's not just a government operation. There are private groups that do it, and that's the thing, is narrowing it down to why it's doing what's over a certain area. I mean, I once saw this type of fogging going on in McMinnville, Oregon, and it made me sick. And it was a fogging operation. They were fogging an area, and no one knew why. It was out in the middle of nowhere.
One thing, just to interject, as per what the caller was referencing, there are so many different programs at play. You've got the Air Force, you've got NASA, you've got the Navy. Okay, there's weather modification programs. every state has their own weather modification programs. They can make it rain, make it not rain. So there's different things. You could have been witnessing a weather modification program. There's also programs to block out the sun, the solar radiation
Don't forget the
management.
Chinese. They have them too. Chinese have them.
Exactly. And then Russia, they come and they urge that we need to include geoengineering in the global warming scenario, or we're not even, or the formulas are inaccurate.
We'll be back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away.
Thank you.
Patrick Roddie's with us tonight on Ground Zero. Matt Landman's with us tonight on Ground Zero. You know, we were talking with the mics off during the break, and Patrick brought up something very profound. He said, you know, if you don't believe they're geoengineering, look at the bang-up job they did with social engineering.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah. Well, everything's weaponized now. I mean,
words are weaponized.
Words are weaponized. Your food, your air, your vaccines, every freaking thing. And it's the thing is, though, I think they've moved too fast, because there is this massive awakening. This is not the alternative media. I mean, they talk about the mainstream media. That's the vestigial media. Like, they are getting, you know, like their top shows will get like 100,000 viewers.
Yeah.
And we got like 2 million listening here tonight. So, you know, they have prettier sets, the people with, the girls with the short skirts and stuff, but people aren't buying it. Brexit happened. The majority of the British population said, I think you're lying to us, and we're actually going to go with our gut and say, no thanks. So it's a wonderful thing. But the process of awakening, as I mentioned before, you go through the grieving process. It is a hard thing. And when you're getting someone to, if a family member or a friend of yours just won't accept it, you really got to bear in mind that you're asking them to go through trauma. Yeah. And then when they go through it, they'll go through the anger and all the bargaining. And you can see, like on Facebook, you'll see these comments, oh, I'm so angry, I'm so this, I'm so that. It's a process, but when you get through it, it's awesome, because you only have to do it once. And each new thing you learn about, it's just, oh yeah, that just fits in with, the scummy things those guys do. But and the simplest thing is listen to your gut, do the right thing. And if we win that way, you do not extinguish darkness. Well, you do. Sorry, darkness cannot extinguish light, but we can extinguish darkness with our light. So
Patrick Roddie with us, Matt Landman with us. We're going to carry them over to the next hour. And the hour after that, they said they're going to stay with us and get your calls here at 888-673-3700. So get your questions ready, get your statements ready, because they're going to be here and go through the whole show with us tonight. So stand by. We're going over to the other side now, and if you want to check out where we are, just go to TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStreamLive.com will give you the information on where we are and what stations you can find us on online to listen. The numbers again, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back. I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. What is, I think, the most difficult task for me, and I think the most difficult task is to step out of some of the analysis has been given by other people and trying to have a more rational, or at least, I would say, a more thorough discussion and say, look, okay, there are a lot of things that we hear about the chemtrail thing that are just nonsense, and I would admit they're nonsense, because that's what you do when you're analyzing theory, and theories about chemtrails and some of the theories about the chemtrails just don't add up. And I'm not going to tell you that they do, because that wouldn't be honest. See, what's missing from most analysis of the subject of the trails are two things. One is, what is the intent? Why do we have not only fact, but we have fiction being pushed, disinformation being pushed, and also denial being pushed? Because more and more people are noticing, and they know, because there are documents. If you just take the time you can find that there is an aerosol spraying issue to be dealt with. People are clearly seeing something that is happening over their heads. And they're beginning to realize what they see in the sky is not normal. With persistent aerosols formed into a grid pattern, or you're seeing aerosol lines which slowly disperse to turn into a huge cloud that makes the sky a milky white, or it develops into a major storm. I mean, there are other strange anomalies all adding up to one thing: visual evidence that can be captured. I mean, you take pictures of it. I mean, it makes it difficult to dispute when the whole sky is turned milky white. Or when we see the oily substance, the oily rainbow on the sun dog that has the oily rainbow around it. This phenomenon is often described in many ways. And even there are those who argue that the problem is the word chemtrail itself. It's a psyop subversion to call it a chemtrail, when there are those who are waking up to the issue that know that this is more than just a chemtrail. This is something that is geoengineering the climate. It's also creating a toxic environment where people are dying, or people are developing things like dementia and other maladies. And also, there are many people that are having these sick feelings, or the sick behavior, or the sick behaviors that develop into depression. We see terminologies like persistent trails or persistent aerosol trails that are used by people who don't want to fall into pushing the idea of chemtrails, because they are persistent. I mean, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, calls them persistent trails. So if they're calling them persistent trails, then obviously chemtrails is something they're moving away from. I mean, I use chemtrails because if you don't say anything else, I go, what are you talking about? Aerosol trails, geoengineering trails? Yeah, well, that's what chemtrails were once called. But we have organizations that are trying to take out the word chemtrail and just make them persistent trails or persistent aerosols, because no one knows what their makeup is all about unless they analyze them. And when they do analyze them, we find increased levels of aluminum, barium, and various other metals that have fallen to the ground, that are found in the soil, that are found in our bodies. Aluminum seems to be one of the more commonly referred to metals, and presents as one which is consistently much higher than normal in most cases. And these elements are also identified within the chemtrail conspiracy, which basically is part of the persistent aerosols that are visually observed. And if we use the same co-opted words to describe two different findings, then it's implied that they're created and spread at the same time by the same people with the same intent. And I don't think that's necessarily so. I think there are different groups involved. And if we separate them from each other, and if we find better terminology to describe what's going on, then we can shake off the whole conspiracy theory idea, and we can say, look, we are in a position where we want to create something that's more easily recognized than many of the explanations that have been given before now. They haven't accurately reflected the reality. And I always say, when you're investigating conspiracy theory, you discard the ideas that don't work, that don't add up, because it helps us better understand the true goals of this program, or whatever this program is, whatever the setup is, or at the very least, to recognize what is not going on. Sometimes it helps to cut the fat. Sometimes it helps to eliminate some of the mental clutter, the noise. Because we got to find intent, motive. And if we find the intent and motive, which I've attempted to show that a lot of the intent and motive was either to spray, to test, to create smart, virulent type of bio warfare, to test it on the subjects to see what their reaction would be. I mean, those are some of the past intent, past motive that allegedly had stopped. But with MK Naomi and Project Cloverleaf, we can see that it continued. We can see that it was revealed. We can see that it was declassified. But now we're seeing a global program that's being conducted at the highest levels of many different sovereign governments. So we're noticing it's being conducted by their military. It's being conducted by our military. It's being conducted by private networks, private contractors, those who have bottomless pockets, significant sums of money, and that kind of money is being used to operate and to carry out these operations. And one thing that appears certain, the goal is to apply nanometals to the troposphere. They want to add nanometals to the troposphere, the stratosphere, or other levels in our atmosphere, persistent trails. It's reasonable to, I guess, speculate or postulate that the persistent aerosols, the persistent trails we see, are being applied for a very specific reason. And it's being done with the subsequent understanding that this is where the program has its most significant public exposure, since it's so damn visually obvious. So, to be seen is one of the first and foremost things they do. We have the power to show you what we're doing to you. Now, you can worry, you can investigate, you can do whatever. We can deny, which they do. You can come up with all kinds of theories, and you can believe them as fact when there are no facts to back up some of the theories, and so we have to cut the fat. We have to get rid of the mental clutter. We have to find facts, and that is why it's important to have people who are willing to go through that extra effort of piecing it all together for us, creating, like, for example, the film, like Matt is doing, going out and doing the studying and the reporting, like Patrick is doing. And you have to, as I say again, cut the fat, cut the mental clutter. And that's why I say I feel bad that there are those who've come before me that have clouded a lot of the issue, muddied a lot of the issue, and now that we're getting more information, no one's willing to report that information because they want to continue the process of mystery. And that's great for ratings. That's great for clickbait. But if you give facts, if you give the intent, or you find an intent, what the intentionality is, or what they were planning on doing, that's critically important to the analysis of what we're up to and why we do this. Intent. I mean, you heard Patrick say that, it's evil. Evil against the good, dark against the light. To cull a population, to render them sick or nauseous or with the inability to heal themselves, that is the evil. To go in and eliminate certain parts of a bioorganism or a mycoplasma and then inject it into the populace and watch people have chronic fatigue syndrome, watch them have dementia, see them die of dementia, have it all acknowledged and the metals acknowledged and all the research acknowledged that could lead to these aerosol programs, and then to deny it because you know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody that says, well, it doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. There needs to be analysis, there needs to be intent, there needs to be all this put together. We need to think about this. We're going to take some calls coming up. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Coming up, more from Patrick Roddie and Matt Landman tonight on Ground Zero to talk about the trails and to give you an honest approach to what's happening right here. Keep it here. 888-673-3700. We'll be back. Let's go to Lynn, calling in from Maine tonight.
Hi, Lynn. You're on Ground Zero. Hi.
Thank you for taking my call.
You bet.
I tuned in late. What's the movie that Patrick put out?
Oh, that's Matt's movie, Frankenskies.
Okay. My situation is this. I have 80 acres. I live out in the woods. For 30 years, I could count on one hand the amount of times I've had a commercial flight. I always used to like going out looking at the blue sky, and it looks like I could play tic-tac-toe out there.
Yeah.
Now, I want to have a garden, but I don't know if I should have a greenhouse because I don't know how safe it is.
I agreed. Actually, what you do want to do is, I mean, the scumbag. By the way, the people who are behind this stuff, I call them the scumbags. They're the people who decide to do it. The people who implement it, I call the douchebags. So, like Henry Kissinger's a douchebag. Ken Calder, all those guys. So the people who implement it, the shills, they're all douchebags. Yeah, they grow all their food under glass. I mean, a lot of people postulate a lot of this stuff is actually done underground because hydroponics. We're in Oregon. Yeah, there's plenty of that. Yeah, they protect themselves by keeping their air pure. They get their water from deep underground wells. There is very extremely expensive air filtration stuff because the commercially available air filtration systems will not pick up particles less than 5 nanometers across. They just can't. We're breathing that stuff and there's no escape from it. They also have other countermeasures. Max Bliss, who's a fantastic activist out of France, he's a great guy. We should have him on sometime. He and I were at the AAAS, American Association for the Advancement of Science meeting in San Jose a couple years ago. We're talking to this scientist from Tulane University, and we were talking about the aluminum. And he said, "Wow, that's weird," because a colleague of mine worked on this protein, which when you ingest it, it will go into your organs and extract aluminum from your cells and expel it from the body. That technology exists for the scumbags. We don't have it. But here's the key thing. There's a huge structure of all these people who are the paid deniers and so on. They don't get that memo. We need to protect them. We are about saving everybody. We want to save the other side. That whole love your enemy bit, I get it now. We shine light, we shine love, and we want to protect them. And even if they themselves are able to have access to this technology, their loved ones aren't, their dog, their drinking buddies. We want to save them. We need to appeal to the people on the other side to, they don't have to do anything severe. I mean, just take longer bathroom breaks, anything. We need to get this to stop and get resistance. And there is, just as you are awake, you'd be surprised. Once you start talking to people, you'd be surprised how many people know about this. We are I don't know, we may be the majority now. It's getting there because not so long ago, very people knew about it. So, yeah, and, but you do, what?
Here's another question.
Sure.
My grandmother had Alzheimer's.
Right.
And my family, we won't buy anything with alum in it. And it's in the food.
It's in everything. It's in vaccines. It's underarm deodorant. It's in the air.
Pickles, relishes, all that stuff. Alum, right on the label.
Right, yeah. Not good. Not good at all. Well, and that's the thing is that...
I'd be better off just doing the greenhouse.
Greenhouse is good, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a start, absolutely, yeah. And also, if you have a well, water it from the well, and because rainwater is going to have this crap in it, unfortunately, as well.
That's all I have is well water.
Yeah, you're good then.
In the woods.
Yeah, you're good.
I'm safe.
All right. Well, Lynn, thank you for calling the program tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Let's take care. One thing before we go to the break, I want to know what is that GoFundMe you're doing, so we can talk about that, so people can help out with the film.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, Clyde. Today I launched it, and it gives a little bio of like the activism that I've been doing over the past year, and it culminates with the film. It's 70 minutes long. The title's Frankenskies. It's the best chemtrail documentary out there. We interview Patrick Roddie. Patrick Roddie goes up to Vancouver and interviews Bill Vanderzam, former premier, who's awake to chemtrails and says that we need to act. And we get some scientists. We interviewed a former meteorologist, Scott Stevens.
Oh, Scott's great.
Yep, the film is excellent, and I just put it up for basically pre-sales. I'm for donations. The film is $15, or there's a limited edition for $25, and the proceeds will go towards funding this tour that's going 23 cities.
And talk about your tour also. We have a little bit of time for that.
Yeah, totally. So on the crowdfund, it's on GoFundMe. That's a website, GoFundMe.com. And then it's titled Frankenskies. Like there's Frankenfood, right? And so what I want to do is get chemtrails to a point where GMOs are now. Because at one point, people didn't know about GMOs, right? So now they're talking about them, Frankenfoods. Oh, I don't eat those Frankenfoods. Well, what about your Frankenskies? It's time to talk about that, too.
I agree, and that's one of the things I said during the setup of the show this hour. Was I was saying that we need to find out intent, we need to find out where and how, and we need to be able to put it all together where we cut the loose ends. What we do is we get rid of the noise and the clutter. We find truth, and we do that with dialogue. We do that with sound investigation, motive. We go through all of it, and that's why we're here tonight. Patrick Roddie with us tonight on Ground Zero. Matt Landman's with us. And your phone calls, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero. Numbers of call tonight, 888-673-3700. 888-673-3700. We got Patrick Roddie with us tonight. Matt Landman tonight talking about chemtrails. Taking a sneak peek here in the studio of his film, Frankenskies. It's looking really good, Matt. It really is. Tell us about the film. I was just you were going through it really quick, but it was amazing to see what we're seeing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I gave you an hour and a half in 30 seconds.
30 seconds, yeah.
But it does look quality, huh?
Oh, it's awesome. It looks like one of the best. I mean, this is going to be the best chemtrail movie.
It's definitely the best, yes. Well, where to begin? We definitely got some politicians involved. Patrick, my whole quest, my quest began about 2 years ago when I decided that a movie needed to be made about this. And I started digging and got out the whiteboard and was compiling these lists of names. And it's funny that Patrick didn't answer my phone calls or respond to my messages because he was in Paris. He was at a climate conference in Paris, so it's okay. I'll give him that. But then finally, I realized I had met him before, which is wild. We had met in 2007 at a festival. He's a photographer, and he had photographed me and my partner at the time, which was...
That look of love. Oh.
Yeah, it was. I was in love. I was
it was
Natasha
beautiful.
From Ukraine. And I ended up chasing her back to Ukraine and getting rejected. It was out of control. So either way, okay. So once I found the right names, it really started unfolding, and there was these divisions, and some of the movies out there weren't really conveying the message that needed to be conveyed, and the people that needed to be represented weren't being represented, and there was a lot of splintering in the activism movement. And when I decided to make the film, I also came into the struggle that we had to find some unity, and that's why we started doing these summits, and that's why we're having the Global Chemtrail Summit here in Portland on May 6th, which is set to be a rather large event. I've got a lot of musicians involved. It could be a really big day. It will.
I gotta say though, the Vancouver one was awesome. That was really. I mean, yeah, I was in it, but it was just amazing.
It was top notch. It was catered, and the one thing that was. I don't know if it was disheartening or not, but we did pack the house. But the demographic, Clyde, there, everyone was old. I was looking at pictures of it the other day. Half the crowd were bald men, 50%, and the other.
There are plenty of guys my age that are bald men. I'm not. Well, I am getting older.
There were no kids at all.
If you can call 53 old, I'm going to be 53.
Well, I'm 51.
You're 51? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay. What I mean
We're older than you.
There weren't any kids. There weren't any kids. Okay, I'm 36. There wasn't anybody my age, right? There was the youth was not represented.
You need to take it to the colleges, dude. You need to take it to the colleges. You need to have a special, get a special auditorium for the colleges and show it at colleges.
Yeah, that will happen.
If you want youth for action, you age for wisdom, youth for action. Go to the youth, get the action done. Use the older guys for the wisdom and to try to disseminate the information like they can.
Yeah, I hope to be able to do that on the tour. I'm going to a lot of young cities. So to promote the film and to bring attention to the solar geoengineering governance regime being established in Chicago on May 18th. This is behind closed doors. 24 scientists are meeting because they claim exclusive rights to saving the planet. Those of you who like to research things, go ahead and look that one up, Exclusive Rights to Saving the Planet. They came out with a paper in 2015, they being the Buffett Foundation, where this roundtable meeting is being held. And this paper says that they have exclusive rights to saving the planet because they have the patents and they have the technology to geoengineer the planet. And they claim that because the rich, industrious East or West, what are we? We're the westernized world. Okay, the westernized world, we industrialized and we polluted the planet. And because we've caused global warming, we have the obligation to block out the sun and pause global warming.
We also have the obligation to pay
carbon tax.
Carbon tax.
So that's all connected.
And what carbon tax is just basically giving money to countries who say that we created a problem and that they're suffering for it.
Oh yeah, no, get this. So the proponents, these guys, the patent holders, okay? Patent holders.
Right.
These people who are about to make way more, I mean, they're already doing it. They claim it's just research. They're already getting paid big.
Oh, sure.
So after they launch, here's what they've got. They've got their supposed carbon capturing technology. Okay, so they're going to put up these machines, and these machines are going to be supposedly capturing carbon, and you're going to be taxed for these operations, the carbon tax. Mm-hmm. So he's got the machines going, and he's the patent holder for these machines. I'm referencing David Keith, but it's the Carnegie Institute, right?
Right.
And so then, on top of that, they're going to be blocking out the sun. So they've got the double whammy. They're laying the aerosols out. That's their patents. They're getting paid for that. They're pulling the carbon out, which it's all a big sham.
Plant food. We should remind people it's plant food.
It's the carbon is, yeah, exactly.
That's the thing is
life forms.
They've hired the right scientists to come in and say the right things.
Yeah.
Same scientists are dismissing chemtrails.
Mm-hmm.
Same scientists that at the summit decided to not allow geoengineering into the summit.
Yeah.
And when asked why, they wouldn't say why. They just told people they could not demonstrate what geoengineering may be doing for climate.
Yeah.
And so, once again, it's about global sustainability. It has nothing to do with climate. It's the idea that we want the resources and we'll do everything in our power to get them. And once we get them, we'll redistribute them.
Well, sustainability is that code word again for Agenda 21, which is technocracy. That's a technological enslavement. Sure. Basically, they're going to say, with the Paris Climate Paris Climate thing, they allocated carbon allowances for nations, which means individuals will end up having carbon allowances. And they could say, I said this before, oh yeah, we received your application for a fertility license to have a child, but yeah, I'm sorry, your carbon credits aren't good enough. No, you can't have one. That sounds like a 70s dystopian sci-fi movie, but they're actually freaking doing it. And hell no. We went over this before in the last thing, but this whole global warming thing is a total freaking scam.
Oh, yeah.
You had the Club of Rome in 91 saying, in looking for a common enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that global warming, famines, and droughts would fit the bill. And then 1 year later, you have this Rio Earth Summit, carbon taxes, and Al Gore's dog and pony show. It's a complete freaking scam. Do not buy it. If you agree to this, you're agreeing to total enslavement of every single freaking thing in your life. And it doesn't stop at energy. They want information about every single thing. So to recap on the thing we said before, technocracy, this is crackpot idea dreamed up in the 1930s. They wanted to replace the economic system with an energy-based thing. But like if you have a gold-based economy, you know how much a loaf of bread is worth and compared to the amount of gold there is. But with energy, you have to know how much energy is being stored, transferred, whatever, at all times. Hence, smart meters, smart every freaking thing. Reject it. If you believe that a trace gas, which I mean, it's like it's in parts per million, it's ridiculous. I mean, water vapor is the main driver of global warming. It's like cloudy nights are warmer, you know. And what is the main driver of global temperatures? The frickin' sun. Right now, there's hardly any sunspots, and they're saying, you reported last time, oh, it's going to be, you know, sizzling cold next year because it's getting even colder. The head of the IPCC said back in 2013 there's been no global warming for 17 years. And UK Met Office on board. It's a complete scam. Do not buy it. And if anyone calls me a denier, what about everyone who's freaking denying the eco side? They're killing the biosphere. Screw that. I'm pissed, frankly.
Oh,
who
is it? Those who just aren't awake. They don't understand it.
Yeah.
We got to take a break. We'll be back with more. Keep it here on Ground Zero. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Patrick Roddie, impassioned speech there. Thank you so much. Also, Matt Landman with us. We'll be back with more. Don't go away. Let's go to Michael in Ohio. Hi, Michael. You're on Ground Zero. Go ahead.
Hey, Clyde. Nice to talk to you tonight.
Good to talk to you.
So, yeah, man, there's been something going on in Ohio for like almost a year and a half, which has been very strange. And the people in my network, we've coined them shadow trails because basically what's been going on, like even on a clear day, a blue sky day, you'll see a dark line across the sky. And recently, they've been following those dark lines with a chemtrail, and chemtrail is also a bad word to use, but they've been spraying along the line of the dark line. What I think is happening is that they've gone above the atmosphere right now, and they're spraying in outer space, basically like in the satellite belt, and it casts a shadow down on Earth. They're trying everything they can to geoengineer the planet Earth.
Patrick, what do you say? Well, let Patrick comment on this shadow trails you're talking about.
Well, I just got back from Death Valley. I was in Death Valley last week, and there, I mean, a lot of times when the sun is low, and there's a cloud between the sun and a chemtrail, it'll look dark. And also, there's other times when there's a trail, it'll look like there's a black trail underneath it. That's actually the shadow of the trail. But the ones I saw in Death Valley last week were black. They were straight up black trails. There was no shadow. It was above sunlit mountains. So I know they spray carbon black, but this wasn't behaving like carbon black. It was behaving like these wispy trails that you get. So it was some weird, creepy black stuff. And yeah, they're spraying all kinds of crap. God knows what it is.
Yeah, and I'll tell you guys, I'm a NASA brat. My family's been in NASA since its beginning.
Yeah.
And I know that they're spraying barium oxide because the magnetosphere is weakening, and they're trying to absorb the solar radiation because the magnetosphere is weakening. Like that's like one of the good things about, you guys have to realize it's a double-edged sword of what's going on and what they're spraying up there. The magnetosphere is weakening, so they're spraying barium oxide to absorb solar radiation. But that's not all they're spraying up there.
Exactly, yeah. And that could be a cover story. I mean, like the official line on this whole thing is, oh, we're all going to die from global warming, and we might just have to spray sulfates into the sky to reduce global warming. Like this character, David Keith, who Yeah. Anyway, him and Ken Calder and Alan Roebuck are the three main guys who go out to do this stuff. They'll only talk about sulfates in public. But their own papers say, actually, sulfates don't work. They stick together. They fall out of the sky. Instead, you got to use nanoparticulate aluminum, barium, strontium, magnetite, and so on. And this character, David Keithy, wrote a paper back in 2010, Photophoretic Levitation of Geoengineered Particles. And in it, he has these little nano discs, and it's like this little freaking robot. It wasn't a robot. It's like a layer of aluminum oxide, then aluminum, then barium, titanate, and then magnetite. You know, it's there. Ugh.
You are correct. The aluminum, I'm privy enough that I actually got to hang out with the retired admiral of the United States Navy. The aluminum that they're spraying in the atmosphere is actually a missile shield. It allows them to fire up what you might call HARP and excite the aluminum in the atmosphere and literally burn up the ICBM before it can hit the United States. And so that's why Russia, China, everybody else was all pissed off, because we actually truly built an ICBM missile shield. We can cook the missile before it actually hits us.
Well, unfortunately, they're cooking us. But Russia and China also spray. Again, go to worldview.earthdata.nasa.gov. Have a look. Moscow gets sprayed daily.
I'm not buying any of that beneficial chemtrail stuff.
No, they're murderous douche nozzles.
No. Well, that's why I went into the shadow stuff, is because they realized that putting all these metals in the atmosphere is hurting their families. And so when I was talking about the shadow
the dark trails,
is they're going outside the atmosphere now.
Mission maybe.
Who knows?
Well, Michael, thank you for the information. I really appreciate you calling the show tonight.
All right, thank you.
Take care. We'll be back with more Ground Zero. Give us a call, 888-673-3700. Patrick Roddie with us and Matt Landman. We'll be right back with more. Don't go away. I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. Just when you think a subject has been analyzed to death, someone comes along and breaks new ground. And not in just with the conclusions they draw, but in the thought process and logic they apply. Sometimes it can be so new and innovative, we might just be tempted to say, that can't be true. Come on, really? Nah. But it just might be true. You know, a lot of people don't take the time to look up. They just don't. They their feet, looking just ahead of their feet. They don't want to look up. And, they don't look up in the daytime sky and examine it for several minutes. This is not something we do. But when you do, if you take the time to look up, if you take the time to analyze, you realize the skies are looking different. A lot more different than they did when you were a kid. You're not sure what's going on. If you analyze it for a long period of time, you don't know exactly what's happening with it. People from all walks of life are beginning to realize that at times our skies look quite different from the way they were a few decades ago. And it's been more than that, really. Because I would say maybe 5-10 years ago.
1 year ago.
Would have been laughed out of the room if they expressed their views in public about what they see in the sky as far as these trails. And the idea that, at first we heard them called chemtrails. We had people argue that they were regular contrails. But then we noticed that we started seeing information about geoengineering and climate engineering. And so you'd see these persistent vapor trails, and you'd learn about aerosol type of warfare. You learn about testing. You hear about declassifications. And before you know it, you have to ask yourself, what are they doing? Why is it so difficult to discover the reasons behind what is going on? Why is this, obvious, observable phenomenon occurring at all? Why is this happening? Well, it's a number of reasons why it's happening. We have to understand that even within the community that's trying to analyze this, you can be misled. manipulated, you'd be deceived. There are psychological operations that can tell you one thing. They can lead you on a wild goose chase to discredit those who are investigating this type of thing. And once we're better able to see the lies and the cover stories and the noise, then we can begin to explore who and what is behind these programs and what it all means to us, and what it means for our future and our health. Aerosol spraying, aerosol patents, aerosol weapons, aerosols, okay? Cut the chemtrail, cut the geoengineering trail, go right to the searches on Google for aerosols or aerosol programs, and you will see that there are aerosol programs, sprays, visible or not. They are there. Chemical, biological, nanoparticles, they are there. Metals, they are there. They are polluting the sky. It's toxic. The EPA has now acknowledged it. The UN has now acknowledged it. But who hasn't acknowledged it? Climate scientists. They haven't acknowledged it. And so people believe the climate scientists, but they won't acknowledge the EPA and they won't acknowledge the UN. Yet, only certain factions of the UN have admitted it. The climate people, the whole summit idea, the whole 2030 summit idea, the whole Agenda 21, they're not going to admit to you that this is what they're using to cull the population. They're not going to admit to you this is a psychological operation or a psyop. Because the intelligence agencies, the governmental operatives, and the private networks are basically succeeding in their deceptions. And those deceptions are operating on every social, corporate, and government level imaginable. And so we have to bring people in that are willing to go the extra mile and use their creativity to try and change the way these things are done. As I've said in the past, it's hard to step out of the histories that have been said before me and to say, listen, I'm not going to do it the same way the others do it. But I do know they're there. And I know that they've been deployed against us. And I know that in the past they've been deployed against us. And I know what budgets and what names and what operations are being done. And so I decided, let's have some examples. Let's provide some intent. Let's figure out what's going on. So Patrick Roddie is with us tonight on Ground Zero. Matt Landman's with us tonight on Ground Zero to talk about this situation. Frankenskies is the name of the film we just saw earlier. I saw anyway, an hour and a half film done in 30 seconds, and it looked amazing. What is your intent? What are you trying to establish with this film, Matt?
I want to get the conversation to the next level. I think that people aren't talking about it like they should be. People know about GMOs. They need to know about this. People need to step to it's literally next level thinking, but people need to take it beyond this this blind eye. They're turning a blind eye. So what you asked me before, what my biggest challenge was with the film was, it was finding the direction. Like I wanted to tell people global warming's a hoax. It's the carbon capture technology and Al Gore and all this stuff. It's such a big story, right? The film, I want people to know that there's lines in the sky and they need to look out for them. Like we need to start this conversation on like a really real level. And that's the goal, just awareness, transparency, and then once we reach our 100th monkey, like they say, then the conversation reaches the table and all of a sudden we're making Oregon a chemtrail-free zone, stuff like that.
It can be done. Mm-hmm. We can, didn't Dennis Kucinich?
It was the space weapons treaty actually had word chemtrail in the House resolution, bloody blah, and he got, someone had a conversation and got pulled. It's a covert program. And while it's a covert program, it's only a proposal. And actually, it's also interesting the use of the term research. Mm-hmm. As long as it's research, according to U.S. Code 50, Section 1320A, I think, it's legal to spray biological and basically wage chemical and biological warfare on a civilian population as long as you call it research. So you got the Super Bowl coming up. It is actually legal. I don't recommend anybody do this, but it would be legal to fly over the Super Bowl and dump nerve gas over the sports fans, as long as your motivation to see how many sports fans you can kill with nerve gas. That is in the frickin' U.S. Code 1320, and that's something, I hope President Trump can repeal.
What's interesting about that U.S. Code 1320 is it specifically states that you cannot do it to other countries.
No, that's the same thing with the NMOD treaty, which is the environmental modification blah 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 thing. It's it's banned as warfare, but you can do it in your own populations. So I think all the spraying is generally done by people's own militaries. CIA got mentioned earlier. I was at the Paris Climate Conference, and they were really leery of even mentioning the word geoengineering. But there was one little meeting that they had. It was off-site at this little small, hard-to-find room. And Alan Roebuck, who's one of the douchebags, because he actually works for them, he's promoting this stuff. He said that there was this paper, it was a Royal Society, whatever. It was this proposal thing, Study National Science Foundation, whatever. And the conclusion of this, it said, we need to implement research, which means spray the crap out of everyone. And he said that CIA came to them. Well, he said it like a friend of his worked in one of the agencies, which was NASA, NOAA, and a couple of other ones. And they said, "Yeah, we want to fund this thing, but we don't want our name on it. Here, can we give you some money so you can do it?" So, CIA have a long history with weather modification. Air America. They were part of Operation Popeye. It goes way back. And actually, the history. When people say, "Oh, this is some freaking science fiction thing," they were using weather modification before the Napoleonic War. They shot sulfur out of cannons to make it rain, so the ground was, bad for cavalry charges. This is nothing new. It's very simple. There's a public, non-covert program. Weather modification industry is very large. Weather Modification Association, I actually went to their freaking meeting last year on the Queen Mary, and there, the only thing you will be hard to find, and I frankly haven't really, to my satisfaction, seen an actual admission. There's the talk of the head of Brennan, the last head of the CIA. He was talking, but they always couch it in terms of a proposal to do research. When, even this thing in Chicago. Oh yeah, for the global governance of, because they're globalists. They of course they want global governance. It's just another excuse to do it. But they're spraying the snot out of everyone, and that's whether they have something in place or not isn't so important. My goal is to firmly establish as common knowledge how devastating an effect this is happening, not on just some person somewhere else. It's the people who are getting these weird illnesses in your family or you yourself, and have that commonly just known as GMOs are kind of sketchy, before they declassify and say, "Oh, we're doing it to save you a 0.5 degree increase in temperature, so you'll be shoveling a little less snow next year." It's a no-brainer. We got to stop this, and it's with movies like Matt's and just people. Just talk to people on the bus. It's not that hard. It might require if you can remember a little bit of high school physics, it'll help you. I'm not sure if Common Core physics would, but the physics I learned. It's like go on Wikipedia, look up condensation, see how it can form. It needs to be humid. It needs a condensation nucleus. So what are these freaking condensation nuclei, and are they toxic? It's really it's simple. You can get caught in the weeds trying to figure out who's doing what and whatever, but there's a crime in progress. It's got to stop. And we need, and you think, oh, what can I do? Gather evidence, take pictures of the sky, keep the full high resolution images, keep them, go to your county coroner's office and get all the death records you can get your hands on. We need to know who died, where, when, and of what. And you can tie these things together and it'll be and he pestered the CDC to release the 2016 mortality statistics. Like, why the hell? Why has that not come out? We can all do stuff, but the main thing is, well, actually, I've been saying for years, the main thing is, telling people. But now, actually, a lot of people already know, and then we got to figure out what's the next step.
I was going to bring up something before we go to break, and that is one of the things that as I was listening to you speak about spraying and all this stuff, and I was saying to myself, wasn't it just last year when the Zika virus was such a fear?
Oh, yeah.
That Puerto Rico was actually sprayed with nano, which was this very highly carcinogenic organophosphate. Neurotoxin. They were sprayed with
Corexit was a neurotoxin as well.
Right. Well,
yeah.
they spray them with this neurotoxin that kills goats, that kills sheep. And they tell them, well, beware of heat because if it gets too hot, people could get night sweats and sick. And so they say, well, we're going to spray it on you anyway, whether you like it or not. Yeah. They sued.
Yeah.
They actually sued because they were sprayed.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing is that they will spray without the public's permission.
That's treason.
Yeah, and it's like
it's murder.
You don't think they're going to spray anything? Go back to when they were spraying knowledge on the Puerto Ricans and how they had no say in the matter. They got sprayed, they got bombed, whether they liked it or not. And they said, I remember people calling me on the show saying big clouds were being sprayed like trails above the sky and they'd settle.
Yeah.
You'd see them settle. The big, droopy, ugly knowledge was settling on the villages. And I was like thinking, no, they don't spray any trails for any reason.
No.
It's all a lie.
That's horrible.
888-673-3700. It's 888-673-3700. We'll be back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away. I have the news on the Paradise Sports Bar and the Ground Zero Lounge. We're doing it. I understand the temperatures are not going to be too cold, and I understand that I don't think we're going to have too much ice. So, coming this Saturday, tomorrow, about 7 o'clock, we're going to be doing the Ground Zero Lounge, coming back to do some talk and some fun there at Paradise. The address, 12423 Northeast Gleason. It's 12423 Northeast Gleason. It'll be at Menlo Park Plaza. Those who've been to the Paradise know how much fun it is. It's a karaoke bar afterwards. So not only do you have some fun with the Ground Zero Lounge, and we have stuff available too, T-shirts and all kinds of cool things that you can also get. We do the Ground Zero Lounge. I speak. It's a community get-together where we can talk about things. It's kind of like a town hall meeting where we talk about things that are on our mind. We're not limited by FCC or any other rules and regulations provided by the government. And while I talk my mind most of the time, there are certain types of topics that are just we're not able to do on the radio. And so with that in mind, we keep ourselves pretty much open. A lot of people get up and talk and they speak, and it's an amazing time for everyone. So the Ground Zero Lounge is happening this Saturday, tomorrow. Can't believe the time's flying by. It's tomorrow. And around 7 o'clock, we'll be there at 12423 Northeast Gleason. That's 12423 Northeast Gleason. So we'll see you there at the Ground Zero Lounge. I just want to make a comment before we get into the phones. We'll get the phones after the break. But think about the PSYOP that is being used on us with regard to everything that's going on. We have manufactured consent and manufactured dissent. And when they put them both together, they're specifically designed to gather consensus for a particular opinion while simultaneously creating controlled and easily dismissed dissent by way of a carefully crafted opposing view. So we're looking at these methods often being employed in our political world to polarize an issue by creating false choices. We're either left or right, conservative or liberal, Democrat or Republican. But here we have these arguments about anthropogenic global warming. We have the arguments about climate change. We have them labeled derisively. It's divisive, derisive. I don't know. I mean, if you question the so-called settled science, regardless of whether or not you actually deny changes in climate, argue all you want for either side, but you're not allowed to diverge from the either, which in turn very effectively constrains both alternative discussions and outcomes. That is why they kept the idea of geoengineering out of the conference. That is why they kept the idea of chemtrails or geoengineering trails out of the conversation. We're inviting it tonight. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We have Patrick Roddie with us tonight and Matt Landman. We'll be back with more. Keep it here on Ground Zero. Don't go away. You are listening to Ground Zero. The numbers to call tonight, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Patrick Roddie with me tonight. Matt Landman. Talking about chemtrails, cutting through the noise and giving you some of the best reporting on this. Goodbye, blue sky. That's exactly what it is. Goodbye, blue sky. You know, speaking of which, I was talking about, before we go to the calls, you know that filmmakers now, and you being a filmmaker, you should know this. Filmmakers now, if they want to do time-sensitive movies, like if they want to go back to the 50s, if they want to go back to a certain time, like the 80s, you know, they have to go in and they have to color correct the sky.
Oh, yeah, you can't imitate skies of the past anymore. You have to digitally do it. Even photographers, too, like for photo shoots.
Yeah, because of the trails. They that's one of the things that's just so ugly. They don't want to have trails. It's like if they want to do a cowboy show, like if they're doing a cowboy show, like for example, if they do cowboy showing out in the West and you see all the beautiful rocks, you know, the red rocks and everything else, you know, in the Old West, you can't have a clear blue sky anymore. You have trails going over, so they have to go in and they have to erase them.
Well, conversely, I was watching this Execrable. I think I pronounced it right. It was a Pixar movie called The Good Dinosaur, and you know, it was like, you know, dinosaurs and stuff, like big cute stuff. Skies were trashed, and they were trashed in all the different ways that they can be trashed. Because again, you go. It's not just they're spraying all kinds of stuff. You know, the official line is, oh yeah, it's, you know, we're putting the stuff into the air, into the sky to reflect sunlight back into space to reduce global warming. If that was the case, they'd find the most effective stuff and only spray that. Except we see all these like fast expanding trails, drippy trails, things that have wispy stuff that goes out both directions, and this freaking Pixar movie, another more evidence that Steve Jobs, you know, since he's gone, it's full of it, and it was revolting. So do not support.
They also add too to make it look normal. I've seen that as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, and actually, what I found really interesting, there was this movie called Ants that came out in '99. To make an animated movie takes years, storyboarding and all that kind of stuff. Yes, the spraying's been going on forever. I mean, it really ramped up in the late 90s. You know, I was saying in one of the breaks, there's this book that I saw from the 60s of this ghost town in the California-Nevada border. The skies were as trash as they were today because they were testing it back then, way out in the desert where no one can see it. But it's insidious. So, and it shows that there's a lot of people know what's going on. But anyway, this movie Ants. There's a scene, I don't know if you remember, when they finally go to that picnic area and they see all the stuff. You look up, frickin' checkerboard, animated, storyboarded years before this became normal, or it wasn't something that was like, oh yeah, this looks normal, I'll just stick this in. No, it's predictive programming or whatever.
Something like that.
Scummy.
Let's go to Mary Jo in Virginia. Hi, you're on Ground Zero.
Hi, Clyde. Thanks for taking my call. I live in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, and it's home to many military bases, so there's always military air traffic, especially flight training, and also being a big port, a major port, there's train traffic and a lot of always maritime traffic too. And I've noticed in the last 10 to 15 years, and I should preface this by saying that I'm not sure I've ever observed a chemtrail in this area, but I've noticed in the last 10 to 15 years that whenever we've had a rainfall, if you step outside immediately afterwards, there's just a very heavy overpowering, almost noxious smell of chemicals. And I've always wondered if that was the result of air pollution or if it could be the result of chemtrails. And I would also like to know if either of your guests can provide websites that actually have a comprehensive list of environmental conditions that can indicate the presence of chemtrails in your area, because, as I said, I don't know whether if it's easy to distinguish between environmental air pollution and chemtrail pollution, or if they commingle. And I also want to say that my sister and I fit into the category that you've been talking about earlier in the show, with people who have been experiencing illnesses like with all the various symptoms and not able to recover from them. And last month, my sister and I, who have been reasonably healthy people and have only maybe contracted 1 or 2 colds a year, last month each of us contracted colds back to back, and we've never experienced any symptoms like we had with those colds, and we're still we're still in the process of recovery and wondering if we ever will. So again, thank you for taking my question.
Okay.
Well, the simple answer for can a contrail exist above your head is if you Google or you start page or whatever, look up the Wyoming soundings. And that's a network of weather balloons that go up worldwide, and you just find the closest station to you and see when the most recent one. They go up twice a day, and like if the relative humidity at cruising altitude is like 33,000 feet upwards, like between 30 and 40,000 feet is the usual flight altitude of a plane. If it's down at if it's less than 60%, it's impossible for contrails to form, let alone persist. So that's question one. The second thing about you mentioned about I was curious about the smells. If it smelled like nail polish remover, that means that acetone is used to encapsulate some of the nastier stuff. And yeah, there's all kinds of weird smells. Some people claim they can smell all kinds of stuff. Acetone I can smell. What I'd encourage everyone listening to this, just go on your Facebook feed and say, hey, how many of you guys are feeling sick? Are you feeling more sick recently than you did last year or whatever? Because I found like with my Facebook people, a lot of people, they said most of the people that they knew were sick. This thing is really ramping up, and it's quite alarming. But Virginia, you can see there's that NASA satellite website, worldview.earth.nasa.gov. You can look and you can see trails from space, and then you just overlay that with the data from the Wyoming soundings. And if there's trails and it's too dry, what is it? It's basically not a contrail. I mean, if it's super high humidity, like it does get humid. That's how we get clouds and stuff. But you also still need something for water vapor to attach to, especially up at that altitude. There's not much up there at all for things to stick to. So if it's a line that just stays there, it's pretty much probably a chemtrail. And when I say chemtrail, artificially nucleated contrail is another word for it.
There are a lot of terminologies for it. We're going to take a break and get some more calls. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Tonight on the show, we have Patrick Roddie with us and Matt Landman tonight talking about chemtrails. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. And we'll be right back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away. All right, we're going to go to Krista in Texas. Hi, Krista. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Matt. Thank you for taking my call, y'all. This is Krista Clark in Austin, Texas.
Hey,
and
Krista
we are with Brave New Books, and we'll be hosting you April 21st. And I'm so excited and trying to do as much as I can to help get the word out and network for you. And my question is, are you going to continue this next year? They have started the past couple of years the Global March Against Chemtrails and Geoengineering. And I know that there's the Climate March that happens annually also, which is going to happen a week after you leave Austin. So I'm just curious about that. And also, if you were able to speak at that march, what would your 30-second elevator speech be to help lift these people to the next level? Because a lot of them are co-opted into believing this carbon tax situation and unfortunately getting more people on board with that. So I feel like I appreciate your mention of next leveling and how can we inspire them to wake up more?
Sorry for laughing. We were actually just discussing this in a break.
I had just said we should all give our 30-second elevator speech. Hi, Krista. Nice to hear your voice. Me and Krista just connected on Facebook because she's helping with the Austin, Texas stop of the 23 city tour. Okay, so first off, yes, it will be going into next year. The tour is basically never going to end, and we all know it. I've got a sequel coming out, and then, so basically I'll be touring and showing the first film, Frankenskies, and then by the time the tour's done and we've accumulated footage via the tour and these other people that we're going to be meeting along the way, we'll have Frankenskies 2, and then that will be going into next year. So my 30-second to all of these people who are totally sold on the carbon tax and all of that, I would ask them if they remember the ice age that we're supposed to be going into. That in the 80s, we were going to be going into an ice age, and we were supposed to have a mile of ice over our heads, is what I was told. I'm 36. When I was young, I was told you're going to have a mile of ice over your head. We're going into an ice age. Nobody cared. People couldn't be afraid of a mile of ice. Well, I'm going to be under a mile of ice. I'm going to die. There's nothing that you could do. There wasn't enough that they could fearmonger people. So they flipped the script. The front page of Time magazine literally went from we're going into an ice age to we're going into a heating phase. So, I mean, I would try to, you know what, I'm going to have to really think about that. But I would have to try to address the fact that we've been duped so many times that how are we going to think that they're not doing it again, basically?
I would go right to the throat and say, hey, why don't we talk about the fire and ice theories of the Nazis? I mean, that was the Bluten, blood and soil premise of sustainability. Hitler said that there were a group of people that were moving in who were basically eating up all the resources of Germany, and they needed to be eliminated. They needed to have their carbon footprint eliminated from the earth. And so he blamed it on the Slavs, the Gypsies, the homosexuals, and the Jews. And he did remove their carbon footprint, as many as he could in an oven. And that's exactly what this is. It's just a rehash of the same old Bluten philosophical nonsense that Harbinger, who just happened to be a refrigerator salesman, who became a scientist overnight by saying there will soon be a whole bunch of fire and a whole bunch of ice. Ragnarok is coming. This is the new science, pay attention to it. And that's where they politicize the science and eugenics and everything else. Hitler had an excuse for it. It was called blood and soil policies, eugenics policies that he implemented for resource management.
Well, if I can chime in, I mean, call it population management. Like, the scumbags have always been in on this because, you know, if you can control all these, pyramidal structures of power, they can control all kinds of stuff, but they've never had the numbers. They always feel nervous about being outnumbered a crap load to one, because there's only supposed to be about 6,000 of the top scumbags, including their lieutenants. So this is nothing new. Plato talked about, there's too many ancient Greeks. This is nothing new, and this is just another one of their freaking things. And people say, how could they possibly do that? Well, you know, people accept there's poison in the food. They accepted these like bogus wars that they just made up reasons, and there's sterilants in the food area. It's just another one. But because it's still covert, oh no, it can't exist. Well, sorry, but it does.
Krista, thank you for your call. Thank you so much.
We're going to get that 30-second down. We're going to get that pitch down. It's going to take about 20 cities, but by the time we're done, we're going to know exactly what to say to everyone.
Do your final pitch for that GoFundMe thing so that people can get behind your film, because it's going to be amazing. I saw some of it. It needs to be, actually, we need to talk about that GoFundMe quickly.
I have a GoFundMe account, GoFundMe.com. It's Frankenskies. Like Frankenfood, like Frankenstein, it's your skies. And I'm pre-selling the DVD. It'll be shipped on February 27th to you for $15.
And of course, we're going to be doing the tour. We're going to be having the summit in May, correct? We're going to get a venue soon. It'll be May what?
May 6th in
May
Portland.
6th in Portland. We're going to be doing it here in Portland this year. I'll be speaking there, I'm sure, right?
Yes, you are.
I'm speaking there.
Me too.
And Patrick.
Patrick's going to be there. Thank you both for being on the program. It was an excellent show. It's probably the best show I've done on chemtrails. Really.
Nice,
Thank you so much, all of you. And
Thank
remember, we're going to be at the Ground Zero Lounge tomorrow. I hear the weather's going to be fine, so we'll be out there at the Paradise Lounge.
Yeah.
Be sure to come by and say hi. We'll be there. So.
Oh, and also, if you go to stopsprayingus.com, you can get really cool T-shirts and mugs, and it'll help me pay for water analysis and stuff. So
what's that again?
Go to stopsprayingus.com/support, and you can get like mugs and T-shirts and whatnot, and you can donate to help me keep doing what I'm doing as well.
Fantastic. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you at the Ground Zero Lounge tomorrow night. Good night from Ground Zero.